The following program presents principles designed to promote good health. It should not take the place of personal professional care. Viewers should always consult their qualified health practitioner before considering alternative treatment.
We put all our study on 4 unchangeable things. What are those 4 unchangeable things so that you never forget them? I have this custom to have one slide that I repeat every time because that's the foundation of what we built. So we all need to know the fundamental law of all beings, and that we will study in particularly tomorrow night. It was always included somewhere, but tomorrow night it will be in the center. Until now, we started to see how the human being is structured, how things are put together so that we understand ourselves, how we work, where the buttons are to know what's our problem. And we have seen that we are beings that have needs. They need energy and basic needs. And we have seen that those are physical and spiritual needs that put our whole system into action. And that is our foundation on that what we build, because it's something we cannot change. We cannot change the law, we cannot change the structure, we cannot change our basic needs, and we cannot change the way we have to function. Of course, we can intervene and become unfunctional, then we change the function, but that's not a change in the way to change, but it's just a dysfunction, it doing things that are not right, and so we are then stressed, anxious, and sick. So last night, I hope those who were here got an insight in how they decide, and we'll go once more through it so that we can remember it. Very nice. We have a conscious and a subconscious. And in the conscious, we have our will. And our will is in the computer. What would you suggest or what would you suppose is the will on a computer system? The will is the screen. Okay? Because the screen, can you work on a computer without a screen? No. So our will is the screen. Everything we need must come on screen, so that then in the heart we can take the decision to do it or do it not. We need to be conscious at any moment where we take decisions. When we are in anesthesia or in a coma, we cannot take any decisions. So the screen must be on. That means the will, the consciousness must be on, that we can take decisions. And on that screen, all our needs pop up when they are there and demanded. This is hunger, this is freezing, this is thirst, and this is sweating. So when it is too warm and too cold, so those are things we must become conscious before we can decide what we do with them. The same thing is it with our spiritual needs. In the center here you see H, that is for harmony. Every human being has a primary spiritual need in the center of his personality. And with me, it is harmony. There might be other people that have harmony as well in the center, and then they have some other needs a little bit different than mine. And so everyone in the will is a different person. So in our consciousness, we are all different. And we can be different. Anyone has a different will. Is that good so? Yes, even though we have the same needs, but since the needs are a little bit different, so we have a different personality. So all needs must be there, conscious. I mean, that's what we need. And then in the subconscious, we said last night, we are all the same, because that is function. You see, what you feed your computer is your choice. But the way your computer works is how much your choice? None. So we must make a difference. We can feed us with different information, but the way we feed, the way we store, it's all set by the Creator. That's why subconsciousness, or in the subconscious, we don't know how it works, since it is something that is without a choice. That's how you do things, because that's the only way to do things. That's set by the one that made us. So the green is our brain. That is, the brain has just a plus and a minus, and we saw that the spirit must make to him electricity, and he makes the electricity through his decisions. But he must have a reference to his decisions. So how does the spirit take decisions? Between what are the two thoughts, or it's one thought but the opposite and the other one, what are the two thoughts that any decision is taken? It's gain and loss. So loss is the minus and gain is the plus. And everything that we experience, we must put in either one of the things, gain, zero, or loss. There is no more the way we put things into our storage and how we address them. So you came here tonight for a gain or for a loss? A gain. If it was for a loss, you would not come. Because we were so made that we say yes to the gain and we must say no to loss. If ever a person gets to have his own government, he must have to have a yes and a no. He must have to have something that he has to do and something that he has to avoid. If not, you can never govern yourself. So it's very simple. You must govern yourself, so you must know what to do and what not to do. That's the only thing. Those are two things. Yes and no. There are no more decisions. And we read last night, or we remembered that Jesus was speaking in his Sermon on the Mount that the gain and the loss, the heart is in the center there, the treasure that everyone needs to have, and the treasure must be eternal so that you can never lose it. Because in the moment you lose your treasure, you start dying. Because without that treasure, you die. And so we saw also in the Sermon on the Mount, or I remember the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, your words should say yes, yes, and no, no. Anything else is from the evil one. So we know that there are only two decisions we can take, yes and no. There is no more. And you take these decisions all the time. You see something and you must decide between yes and no, gain and loss, yes and no. And you have only to avoid the loss. That's why every problem that humans have come because of loss. Fear is the result that you want to not lose. Yes, you want to control your loss. So we have seen this last night, and I hope you will think about it more and more to understand yourself. You'll never will have a resistance to anyone that offers you a gain. You will only have a resistance to anyone that offers you a loss. Okay? So, now the question is, can someone make me loss or can no one make me loss? The answer and the truth is no. No one can ever make you a loss. The only one that can do loss is you yourself. But when you experience something that what happened last night here during the presentations, that someone breaks into your car and steals things away, then you get a problem with it, do you? Because you think it's your loss and not the loss of God. I tell you, the theory is easy, but the practice needs something in us, needs to really change fundamentally, so that when we experience anything that we consider personal loss, be able to not destroy ourselves. I have seen people, and all my patients come to me because of one reason: they lost something personally. So the problem is that before we put any event of our life in loss, we have an eye, and we saw that Jesus explains the eye. He says the evil eye and the good eye. Yes, the single eye. So the good eye tells us how we get to gain and how we avoid loss. So we need a clear measurement, and that is the law. And we will see it tomorrow night. So the one eye says, when you receive something, then it is a gain. The other eye says, when you give something, it's a gain. When receiving is gain, then the opposite of it is not receiving, or receive too less because you gave something, or something is taken away. Or if giving is gain, then not to give is loss, and to keep is loss. Those are the definitions that we have, the one side and the other side, the good eye and the evil eye. So the evil eye has the problem that you are not able to avoid loss. Because the evil eye says the actions of others, to receive or not to receive, or something is taken away, makes you a personal loss. If the loss is not personal, you might be feeling pity with the other one, but you are not involved personally in it. You see, when someone's child from your neighbor dies, you might feel with the neighbor. But since it's not yours, you won't get sleepless nights. You won't get any problem before of that. But if it's your child, then you have a problem, because you consider it personally. So, what is the center of the eye? I hope you still remember the center of the eye is identity. It's the question, who am I? That is the most important thing, and we will talk more about it today. And I discovered that we think we are someone that we are not by our motivation. We all know motivation is selfishness and pride, but is that easy to define or difficult to define? Difficult to define. That's why I'm a simplifier of all things. For me, things must be very simple so that I can understand it with my simple mind. So I have to reduce everything to the lowest root, because at the lowest root, everything is simple. At high top, the leaves I was never interested in. To count the leaves doesn't matter. But I want to know the root. At the root, you know everything is purely simple. So one day in my study, I gave the definition for selfishness, the idea I have property or possession. Because I saw that the possessivity of man is his selfishness. If he would have not been possessive, no problem ever would happen with our heart if something is taken away or something bad to us happens. So selfishness is simply you believe someone belongs to you or is your property. Yes? Your arm is you still remember the story? I really learned from that story a lot, from that lady. Because we as Christians, those who are Christians, should know that they have nothing for themselves. Their body, is God's, their life is God's, their power is God's, everything they do is God's. They just use that. Yes, they just use it, and by using it, they are very happy to use it, but they never claim it's theirs. But I rarely found, or I didn't yet found one Christian who says from his heart, I have nothing. Yeah? But I found the opposite. Where people are keeping, are wanting to have things, are trying to get as much as they can because they think their security is in what they have. It's never secure what you have. Never ever. Only what you do is secure. Because that no one can steal from you. And we'll see, maybe I have a time in an evening to say about that more. And the second thing, pride, is nothing else as the idea that you can create love. You can create righteousness. You can create truth. That's the idea of pride. That's why all human beings, by their birth, act giving in order to receive. They never give for free. You know that no one loves you really? Yeah? Everyone who comes to give you something has something in mind to receive something from you. That's why I usually recommend young people to test the heart of their future husband or future wife. Should you know, how can you test the heart of a person? By asking him something? No, you must put him under stress. That's the only way to test. Yes? He must be in a situation where he does not think consciously anymore. You have to switch out his consciousness to see what is in his heart. That's easy, no? That's how you need to know. You need to know before you marry who you marry. And you want to look behind the doors because, at the beginning they all are smart and perfumed and all this. Yeah? But then, as long you go along, they don't brush their teeth, they don't hair their hair. It's just, everything goes fine. Yeah? So that's why you need to test the character before. And it's a simple test. You must see if the person that gives you, God will give it to you from herself or from God. Because there are only these two things. If I am a God, then all I give to you comes from me. If I'm a created person, everything I give doesn't come from me. I just the one that is happy to take it in order to give it and see the joy of the one that receives it in order that he might give it also further. Yes? Not keep it, because if he keeps it, it's gone. So that's the other way. You take in order to give. That's the real love. That's the real motivation. That's the real action. So now you want to prove what's in the heart of a person. And it's very simple. And I suggested this to the girls because they are more maybe wanting to do the testing. Yeah, the boys. Yeah. So, so I said, you want to test the boy? So whenever he brings you some gift, and the time of testing has come, you must do something with that gift. You can throw it away. You can put the flowers in the trash just to see how he reacts. Yes? And then if he says, oh, honey, what's wrong with you today? You say, oh, you passed the test. But if he gets angry on you and says, what do you do with my flowers? Then you say, I'm sorry for you. You didn't pass the test. Now, you think that's mean, does you? But it's not mean. It's very important. You must put these things because humans don't know their heart, and you need to know it. And I was learning myself, and my wife also learns together with me, because she likes flowers. And I grew up not at the city. My wife is from the city, I from the rural country. And so in the country, you don't have flowers in the house, you have flowers outside. And in the cities, you have flowers in the house because, yeah? So I was never used to bring flowers home. But my wife likes flowers to bring home. And so after my conversion, I will tell my story tomorrow night. The Lord reminded me I was out in nature, that my wife likes flowers. So I said, let's pick some because they don't cost anything. So it's just a little bit of exercise and you bring them home. And I brought the flowers home and my wife sees the flowers, her eyes lighten up, and then I do the mistake, I say, the Lord reminded me to bring the flowers. In that moment, she almost threw the flowers away because she said, I do not want the flowers from the Lord. I want them from you. Isn't that funny? How women sometimes think? Because I said to her, can I make flowers? Can I do flowers? No. So I shut my mouth the next time. You just bring the flowers now and then. And it took about a year and a half. One morning, it was just getting to be spring, and I was out in nature because I go out in nature to pray there, and I saw these violets, the little blue flowers. My wife likes them most, and I said, wow, what a surprise, I can bring home the flowers. And so I brought the flowers, and I gave her the flowers. She saw the flowers, and she says, how good is the Lord? I said, oh, you got it. Oh, you got it, you see? We are just the one that transmit and bring it. You can never give anything from yourself. Everything you give, you must take first from somewhere. Yeah? So this is why you test how you test the person. If you bring something from him, his pride, his rejection will immediately rise up without him giving any chance to think. And then you know, okay, this person doesn't know his heart. And if the boys want to do it, they just have to travel with the car middle in the night to get no gas anymore, or something like that, to see just how reacts the girl. Is she very happy and says, oh, let's enjoy the time, very good. We don't have any gas anymore, so that's fine. Yes? So only in stress situations we see if what is in our hearts. That's why God must bring us into lost situation to see to whom our hearts are bound. Yes, very important. So, yesterday I tried to explain that I came to understand that all ideologies that we have on earth, except the right one, have the same root. If you call yourself an atheist, you believe the same like an agnostic, and you believe the same like a communist, and you believe the same like a scientist, and you believe the same like any other religious person. Because every one of these ideologies have the same root. They think, I am God. And I proved to you yesterday, and it's the most evident proof, is the theory of evolution. The theory of evolution has one idea behind it: we made ourselves. And we are the highest being. There is no higher being around us, so we have no higher dependency for us. That's why in science you will never hear that you need love. In science you always will hear that you need emotional things. Because in science, your brain, that is the limbic system, the center of the brain, was before your cortex. In evolution, so it is. But we all know that the limbic system, the center of the brain, is conducted from outside through the cortex. So the science has it upside down, how it cannot work. That's why they come and say emotions are stronger than thoughts. But it's just the opposite. The emotions are only a result of what we subconsciously think. So we must have the right order, because I must tell you, we will see that tomorrow night especially. The evil things are not something, so to say, a new creation. It's just a distortion of the order of things. Because anything evil is just taking and switching the order. That's evilness. Yes, to put the car before the horses. That's evil. You have both inside, but how much does it work if you put the car before the horses? Nothing, it won't work. But you have them both in the picture. So, let's take an overlook about the inner structure of man. So we have here the cortex, the brain, and we know that any impulse that goes into the brain is just an effect. That's why, how much does it matter? Not much. Because everything I find in the body is just a result of what happens in your spirit when you think. And the spirit has the conscious and the subconscious. And now we want to see how those steps in the subconscious go until we take the decision and make the electricity. So, our spirit needs information. He must live from information. He cannot live from anything else. Because the spirit is a spiritual thing, so he lives from spiritual information. So, that's why that information first starts to come to our will. Then it goes into our heart. The first thing that information meets in our heart is identity. Who am I is the first thing that any decision starts. And if I am the right person, that means if I know the truth, I have the good eye, then everything else is correct. Because that's the decisive point, we will see it a little bit later. The next step in our subconscious is trust. Our spirit can never be forced to obey. Okay? That's why the only way the spirit can bring the information in is when he trusts that the information is the truth. So without trust, you can never do any action. Because it does not penetrate you. You must trust the information and the one that gives it, that it is the truth. So the trust means is the question, whom do I trust? So the question you will see that comes after identity is, whom do I trust? Is it possible to do anything without trust? I hope you understand, your spirit can never do anything without first trusting that is the true information. That's why he is always in need of a source of orientation. He can never trust himself. You know that? Because trust means I am dependent to take the information from outside and use it for my power. That's trust is something you always need to do. When you drink some water, you need to trust that water will take your thirst away or is not poisoned or whatever it is. You must trust. You cannot do anything without trust. So the most important thing after identity comes, in whom do I trust? The next step in our heart is motivation. Which question do I ask to know the motivation? For whom do I do it? That's motivation. You always check the motivation if you know for whom do you do what you do. Can you ever do something for yourself? I can tell you, you can never do anything for yourself. It's just a deception. Everything you think you do for yourself, in the end, is never for yourself. Because as a created being that needs to trust, you can never do anything for yourself. Because how much of yourself is yours? So how much can you do then for yourself? Nothing is yours. You cannot do nothing. But we have not realized that. By the way we were made, it's impossible. We will see tomorrow the law. It's impossible that you can do anything for yourself. It's a pure deception that you think you do something for yourself. But we are so convinced that it is so, yes? Yes, it's hard even to realize that it is so. So the action is given by the law. It's take to give. That's the law of life. That is behind the whole scene. But I had to put it somewhere here in the center of the heart, because the law is in the center of the heart. Everything is governed by that. Then we know we have to have the gain. Gain is giving, and it is the goal of all our decisions. But the loss is that what we need to avoid, and we know it is not to give or to keep that what we take. And so decision follows then, and it is only I that can decide yes and no. And you do that for both cortexes. That is the inner structure of man. Those are the steps that follow up, and since the information comes in, you will have all this going through in 4.5 milliseconds until you take a decision. And now we look to the first man, how God created him, and that was Adam. And this is his initial nature of Adam. We all know that Adam was dependent on the Word of God. Yes, every human being must be dependent on a Word. That's why the Word is that what the Spirit lives from. And we need the Word of God, and Adam was dependent on the Word of God to live. So, what was his identity? It was, I am a created being. He knew exactly who he was. That's why, that's the truth, that's the good I. And now everything else is just a matter of steps that follow naturally without any discussion. So in whom does Adam trust if he is a creature of God? He only can trust in God. God is the only source of orientation. He has no other choice, because trust is never a choice. Well, we will see later. What is his motivation? For whom does he work? It's evidently that he works for God, so the love of God is his power by which he lives, and he does all things for God's purpose, because God gave him the job and he fulfills it. He doesn't do the things directly to God, because God doesn't need Adam. Yes, God didn't create Adam for himself. God created Adam for a purpose, to fulfill, to be the ruler of this earth, to bring the power that was needed to the life here on earth. So God made him to do something, and he would do it as a creature does for the purpose it was made. So the action was clear. He would take from God and give. Then what was the gain? To give. He was there for all others. When he got Eve, was Eve for him there or he for Eve? Who was there for whom? Now Eve was made for him what? A helper. A helper. Because man needs help. A helper for what? To fulfill the purpose. Because if she helps him, then both are fulfilling the same purpose. So they had to do something together. Not for each other, but together for God. But nowadays, it's different. We understand that different. So all decisions of Adam were right or wrong? Right. He could never do any wrong decision because all decisions were right. I got this fancy watch. You know, that's an iWatch, or how you call it, Apple Watch. And this watch can do many things. You can phone, it even says to you when you sleep, when you not sleep, or whatever it says to you. It controls you by any yes, it numbers my heartbeat or whatever. So this watch is very able to do 1,000 things. Now, what is this watch not able to do? It cannot have a source of power in herself. It must be connected to a source of power every few days, and that source of power was set for the watch. Now, trust is just that connection. Does the watch have any choice on which source I put it to charge? No, it's set. But you see, what the watch does then with the electricity that it took is free. So Adam had no choice in whom he trusts. But if his trust was correct in his Creator, he could never fail anything in life, no matter what he did. So he was made to do how many decisions? Thousands of decisions, billions of decisions. He was made the most capable creature that God created here on earth, and he would have done all kinds of things by himself, just being connected in trust to God. And then every choice out of trust of God, everything you do out of trust in God is correct. It can never be wrong. Because if you trust God, you do everything out of love, and then you take from God and give it. You can never do anything wrong in trusting God. But if you do not trust God, let's see the change in Adam's nature. What was the only thing where he broke the law? Did he break the law while he ate that fruit, or because he trusted in Eve? So you can never do anything wrong except by trusting the wrong person. And Adam, unfortunately, it's unimaginably, he trusted his wife that she tells the truth before God. So he believed Eve instead of believing God, and so the words of the devil that Eve spoke became his orientation. And then something changed in him. So when he took the word of Satan, what changed in him? Only his identity. He now, from a created being, thinks he is a God. You see, you can never sin except you want to be more than a created being. So he now thinks he is someone that he is not. And anything else now is just a result of that idea. So now that is the lie. He now gets the glasses. I compare our nature with glasses. So glasses do not belong to you. You just use them to see. And now the glass, when you see through it, do you see the glass? No. And now this glass that thinks you are someone that you're not, every information that comes to you, it comes like this, but after it goes through the glass, it comes to you like that. So how do you see all things? Upside down. without a choice, because the glasses switches all information the other way, and you see what the glasses present to you. You don't see that the things comes like this. The glasses just turns it like this, and you are convinced things are like that. That's the problem of man. He has some glasses in front of his heart where when the information comes, boom, he sees it wrong. And so how many good decisions can he take? He believes a lie continually. So then his trust is in whom when he thinks he's God? Every person that I put this question in my practice says, in myself. So in himself. But you know, if you are God, you don't need to trust because you're not dependent. God does never need to trust because he's independent. Trust is dependency. Every person you trust, you're dependent on. Every person you trust, you make yourself dependent on that person. You like it? I hope you don't trust anyone anymore, except God. Yes, some people come to me, but I have to marry and I have to trust my partner. I say, never trust your partner. You always trust God that is the right partner, not because you trust the partner. We have switched the problems. The glasses just, boom. You marry for God or for you? Goes. Why do we marry? Oh, to do God's work better. Between two, you could work better in two than in one. Isn't it? That should it be. But we all marry for whom? For ourselves. So to use the other for my happiness. So you can never trust yourself. In the end, you trust the other humans. And what's your motivation now? For whom do you do the things? You do it for yourself. Pride and selfishness. And in the end, you do it for the devil. You're in bondage to his will without a choice. Because the glasses are his that he put in us, and those glasses are just showing us all things the wrong way. So the action is we give in order to receive. Have you seen the change of the law? And that's the law of death. And then the gain is to receive, and the loss is not to receive or to be taken away. All decisions that Adam did after he fell into sin were wrong. And he could not avoid loss so that he could not get sick. But at that beginning, the sickness was not there yet. So I hope you see the problem in humanity. We see the overview of the heart once more. And you see here identity is the decisive element. We have a will in our spirit that says, I want the good. God put all our needs are good. There is no one need that we want that are bad. We want righteousness, we want love, we want truth. Everything we want are good. That's why God created us so that our will and what He is the same. So He is the righteousness, I need it, so I will go to take His righteousness and use it, and if you do anything out of righteousness, how much wrong can you do? Nothing. If you do anything out of the motivation of love, you could never fail anything. That's how all creatures of God work perfectly, who have never separated from Him. So in the will, what I want, I always want the good. But now in the heart, I have those things. Trust, you know them, motivation, action, gain and loss, and the decision at the end. And then out of your subconsciousness, again your will is active to do what you decided to do. The will, what I do. Then you become conscious what you have done. But you sometimes don't know why you do it. First, your will, what I want, goes through the heart, and then it comes up, and your will needs to put that into practice, what you have decided to do. So that's a difference for what I want and what I do. You remember there is a description in Romans 7 of a man that says, I want to do the good, but I do the evil. So even though I want to do the good, I can do only the evil. That's a discrepancy between what you want and what you do. You see, I want never to get angry again. Do you want that the same? Can you? It just needs someone to trigger your loss problem. Your pride. And in that moment, you're boom, up the hill. In a milliseconds. Yes, in milliseconds. And so you can, I have patients that come to me and say, I prayed for 10 years to never get angry again. And it doesn't work. I say, yes, of course not. Because you don't change anything. Because it's not God's ability to not make you angry. It's your ability that needs to be changed to not be angry again, because you get angry, not God. So you have to control yourself. God cannot control you. So we must understand what I want, I must also do. And there is a discrepancy, and we will see. If I'm a creature of God, you see this, then what I want, I also do. Adam did everything what he wanted. There was nothing that compelled him to do anything. And it was the second Adam, Jesus, as he was on earth. He never did anything what another wanted him to do. He knew his will, what he wanted, was exactly one with the will of his Father. So everything he did was in accordance to the will of his Father, because it was one. So he was always free. He never did something what you don't want to do. That's when you're a prisoner. When you want to do the good and you do bad. So if you think you're God while you are not, then you don't do what you want. Whenever you're in a stress situation, you must remember, you don't do what you want. Because your heart, the glasses, switches you the information so that you calculate it the wrong way. So that's restoration. A human that is restored to what he was made as a creature will be able to control himself perfectly. And then diseases, stress, anxiety is all past. Because they are all the result of doing something you don't want to do. So we have a conflict between good and evil, we can call it, but we must define good and evil. And I define it reason with unreason, wisdom with madness, mindfulness with foolishness. There are only these two poles in us. And so I gave the definition to reason, to wisdom, that it is realistic thoughts and actions according to the laws of nature. And unreason or foolishness or madness or evil is unrealistic thoughts and actions that contradicts the law of nature. Very simple. The law makes the difference if you're wise or unwise. If you are thinking and doing things according to the laws of nature, you will maintain your life and you will maintain nature and not destroy it. And health will be the result of it. If your thoughts are unrealistic and you contradict the laws of nature, that what is possible, then you destroy your life and the vital space, and the result you can see in your body as disease. You know what I found so amazing over the years? No disease comes from reason. All disease is the result of irrationality. An attempt to do something which you are not able to do. Never out of wisdom will everything evil come. So, what is the conflict? Where is the problem of both sides? It's very simple. The good comes from the truth, knowing who you are. And the evil comes from thinking you are someone that you are not. That's the whole battle. Now, where does the battle in reality begins, or where is it in reality? The identity is the determination point because it determines dependency. If you're a creature, are you dependent or independent? You are dependent. If you are not a creature, you are independent. That's the whole problem. That's the whole battle. So, if you're a creature, you're spiritually and physically dependent on your Creator. But if you think you're God, you think you're spiritually and physically independent. Now, the physical, you see that you're dependent. You must breathe, you must, yeah? But still you think you're spiritual independent. When I ask young boys or ladies in my practice when they're 15, are you dependent on your mom spiritually? What is their answer? No, of course. Are you dependent on your mom? Tell the truth. No? It's an unconscious dependency. Are you? No, of course. He doesn't think he's dependent. His mom is dependent on him, but that's another problem. But we need to understand, we think we are spiritually independent. But can this be true? Can every human being be spiritually independent? And I want to prove this through the mother-child connection, or the child-mother connection. In my practice, of course, I wondered, why do children get sick? Why are these babies already sometimes with sicknesses? Why? And I came to understand why. And it opened up my eyes, why a child gets sick. And who do I need to fix that the child should become healthy? So, let's look how a child comes into existence. Here is the body of the mother and the spirit of the mother and the cortex where the spirit is above and leads it. And here is the child, and you know the current there. And here is the body of the child, the spirit of the child, and the brain of the child. And the child makes to his brain the electricity. A child comes from two half parts that come from mother and from father, and they meet where? They meet in, it's part of the mother, but it's not in the mother. Yes? Does the child grow up in the mother or outside the mother? Outside, yes? There's growing nothing in the mother. But some mothers think the child grows in her. But the child grows just on her. He's attached to her. Yeah? Nothing can grow inside the mother. So let's make it clear. So the child is the two cells meet together, they start multiplying, and then they come and install themselves in the uterus of the mother. And from whom does the umbilical cord grow? From the child or from the mother? Now I hear both things. Who can help us? The law can help us. So who is in need? The child is in need, or the embryo is in need to take first that he might be able to develop. So the umbilical cord is part of the child's body. Because the child makes it. He attaches himself and he takes from mother. Has the child a choice for his life if he takes from mother or not? No. If he is going to live, mother is his only source of life. Yes, he is dependent to be connected to her. Because mother is his source. What mother eats affect him or not? What mother drinks affect him or not? Yes, because he has no choice. But when the mother drinks alcohol, who makes the child to be drunk? The child. Because the child takes it from mother. It has no choice. But not the mother makes the child drunk. It's the child who makes himself drunk. But it only can make himself drunk because the mother put that as to disposition of the child to take. So the mother is just a source. The child must take. So is there a responsibility for mothers, what they eat and drink? But how is it about mother's thoughts before and during the pregnancy? How important are mother's thoughts? Why? Is there also an umbilical cord of the spirit? So where is the spirit when the embryo starts? Where is the spirit? He's there present, of course, and every development of the child is dependent of the child's spirit. But the child's spirit is dependent on the spirit of the mother, so he binds himself to mother, and mother's thoughts, the mother's way to deal with life, he takes over, and if mother has stress, he builds his body wrong. You see, when you have things like the ear is missing at your birth, yes? Some deformity. You know, did that come because of any food issues? Who has conducted the problem that it just here does not develop and not here? The one side is perfect and the other side is not. Sometimes both can be impaired. It depends when. But who did it? And when you go through the life of the mother, you will find that it was not what she ate, but her spiritual state, the trouble she went through during that pregnancy that impacted the child. Because the child is dependent spiritually on what his mother thinketh. So mother is source for the thoughts of the child. And so the better the mother thinketh, the better the child is growing. So we put emphasis on the food of the mother, but we don't put emphasis of the thoughts of the mother, which are more important than what mother eats. Because thoughts come before the food. So there must be something that's very, very important. So now the child has developed 9 months. And he comes out and the child takes from mother through trust and gives it. Since when trusts the child his mom? From the beginning. He has no choice. Like he must bind his umbilical cord to mother's body, so he binds his umbilical spiritual cord to mother's spirit. And we can prove this and we'll see it. So, now when the child comes out, we cut through the umbilical cord of the body. It's visible. Does the child change his needs or just his source? Just his source. He still needs oxygen. He still needs the same food. But now mother can eat what she wants. Of course, if she still feeds him, breastfeed him, then of course that is transmitted. But when she stopped breastfeeding him, what can do mother's food? She can eat what she wants. It will not affect the baby's body. because there is no connection anymore there. But the question is, can the mother, after she has given birth to the baby, think what she wants or not? That it will not affect the baby. So it's so important to understand. And I saw this umbilical cord in the diseases of the child. Because the child must give to his body what he takes from mom. And if mom has his needs, then he will never protest. But if he takes something from mom that not fit his needs, then he will put an input in his body that is a protest. And then you will see in his body the sickness of the body. Just a short story, because it's so simple, but I can tell you many stories. The child is 3 years old. It's a girl. She has a cough for 1 year. She goes from doctor to doctor to find out why she coughs. They find nothing. And so finally they end up in my practice so that I should look into her throat to see if something is there that makes the coughing. Now, can we make an irritation of the vagus in our throat to cough? Can we? Yeah, we can. So certain things can make him, and then we have to cough. But if you find nothing in your throat that irritates the body of the child, then where do you look? If you're an ear, nose, and throat, you look into the ear. You know that you cough from the ear? Whenever I clean the ear of my patient, they must cough, because there is a connection there with the vagus that makes a shortcut and or a short circuit. So then when you make there, people need to cough. Sometimes they cough so fast I think they die. Yeah, just because I put a little bit of a pressure there in their ear. So you need to look to the ear as well when someone coughs. Maybe there is something that grows exactly where the nerve is, and then he must cough all the time, because the nerve is irritated in the ear. So you must know the locations where you can irritate the nerve that makes you cough. But now you find nothing in the ear. So you know the cough can only come from the child's spirit that irritates the cough. Irritates the nerve so that you need to cough. Now, you know when the child's spirit does it, the child's spirit does not do this with a choice, but must do it because something that he takes over from mom is not fitting his needs. And that's for a year now. And so I asked the parents, because they came with the child, what happened a year ago? What is in the heart of a mother? And they told me that they moved in another house, in another flat a year ago, and mother is unhappy with the flat. She doesn't like the apartment, and so she starts weeping while she talks about the apartment. And of course she has a conflict now with whom? With the father, because men know the apartment is right, it's good, that's it. Yes? But women are a little bit different than men. They need fancy thing in the apartment, and then they don't feel good. And so here is this woman. She does not feel good. She's sad. Is there any need in a child to have a sad mother? Any need in a child to have a sad mother? No. They all want a happy mother. But now the child wants to change mother to make mother happy. And that force that the child puts makes the child's body sick. So I must help whom? I must help the mother to be free so that the child stops coughing. So simple it is. And I can tell you many stories. One day a mother came with their 2 sons, 8 years and 6 years old. The 8-year son was uncontrollable. He was in school, but he listened to no one. And now they tried to help somehow, and with 7 years, a year before, he said that he will kill himself. When he was 8 months old, whenever he had stress, he put his head on the concrete, yes? And whenever he got stressed, he went somewhere and did wrong something to him. He bite himself, whatever he did. And so he was not controllable. The younger one was lesser affected, and now the mother comes to me because they want to see if the son hears. Why? Because he does not listen. And of course the son was hearing well, but now that she came with them, I said, I want to help this mother, because if she would know what's the problem and she would change it, in about 2 to 3 weeks, the son would be good. Very fast. So I tried to enter into the life of this mother, and I asked her, does she know what's going on in her heart? And you see, it's the most sensitive subject that you have when you discuss with mothers, because they immediately see themselves guilty. But they're not guilty, because no one taught them. You are only guilty when you do something on purpose. But if you do something out of unknowledge, you're not guilty, you're responsible, you see the result, but you're not guilty, because you didn't know. So I excuse all mothers, because no one teaches them what they think affects the child. The way they relate to their husband. You know what's the child's most important need? That mother should love father. If mother loves father, everything in the child goes well. Now you will ask, if father loves mother, it doesn't matter. Because the child has no umbilical cord to the father, just to the mother. Only later it develops, we will see, an umbilical cord to father. But the child is bound to mother. That's why he sees father through mother's eyes. And it's a subconscious thing. There is no consciousness involved in that, because it is function. It's never a choice. So this mother didn't like to open up, so to help her, but she said me one sentence that told me everything. She said, when it comes the evening, I am glad that the day is over. But my happiness disappears immediately when I think tomorrow it starts again. So how is this mother's spirit? Happy or unhappy? Totally unhappy. And no one teaches her how she should become happy. But mothers have the responsibility to care for the way they think, because they are a source of life for their children. How long should a child not be separated from mother's spirit? You see, they made an experiment a few years ago, or last 2 years ago. Neurologists did experiments with mothers and children. They took the electricity from the brain. They measured the electrical movements in the mother and in the child, because that we can measure. And they observed whenever mother changed the waves, immediately the child changed the waves as well. And they separated them so no one saw each other, and it happened the same. And the neurologists, scientists are very, very good in imagination. And so they say it's the child's neurons mirror the neurons of the mother. That's imagination. I say, where do you have mirrors in your brain? How can, on a distance, the child's nerves that are pure in darkness, that are in a liquid, how can they communicate with mom's brain? Is that total nonsense or not? It's the spirit that is connected to mom, because he makes the electricity. The neurons are just what they are. They respond to it because the child is bound to mom. And I made this experiment. We did not have a child of our own. As a young child, we just raised 6 foster children, but the youngest one was 7 when we took them, and the oldest was 17. So every 2 years. It was a nice time, but I didn't have the occasion to see a baby growing up. But the Lord is good to me. At my practice, my helper got married, got pregnant, had a child, and after 1 year, she wanted to come back to work. And I said, stay home, because your child needs you. She said, no, we bought a house, and we have to do this and that. And then I said, okay. And then I got an idea. We make an experiment. I take you back with child. So you come with your child and we raise him here in my practice. I made one room, we emptied just for the child, and I was very curious to see how a child develops from 1 year, and I could see that for 2.5 years. And I tell you, I know everything now. How a child works. Because that child loved to eat. And so it started to do anything. In the practice, it grew up, it started to walk. In the practice, it broke things, so whatever it is. But we like to eat together. And he was young, yes. But when I was at the table with him, his mom went to do some work, because now I could take care for the child. How long did he stay with me and enjoyed the food? He got nervous. Where is mom? Where is mom? And when he started to walk, he jumped down his chair and tippy. He never came to search for me. Whenever he was in danger, he didn't cry, doctor. He cried, mom. I could read on the child's behavior and the child's physical thing how mom was stressed or unstressed. I saw all the mistakes a mother can do with his child. It was a fantastic teaching, and I know it from my own experience. No one can tell me. A child is bound to its mother spiritually for at least 7 to 10 years. It must be bound. It cannot be separated. Today, I found in my practice 2 reasons why children get sick. Either mother has a conflict with father. That's the most causes why children get sick. Because children needs, the mother should love father all the time. And it has that need that they both should be nice together. Yes? And they always take the part of the weaker one, and then they fight. Their selfish nature wants to bring in. I remember with 28 years, I was 28 years, and I wanted to bring my mother and father together to reunite. They got separated when I was 8. And after 20 years, I still had the idea, I have to bring them together. That's the need of a child. And And especially when you need harmony, then you are even more stronger in that. So, the child gets sick when mother is in stress or mother has a conflict or she's not available. You know how much attention a child needs? All attention. The first years, the child needs all your attention. When you decide to have a child, you take off your life like a coat and hang it on the hanger, yes? And you take it again when the child is 12 or 15, when you have done your job, and then you take your life again. Until then, it's gone. But mothers are educated today. And they need to go for their jobs. And so they leave their children and they grow not well. Because this young boy who was in my practice, he needed his whole mother, but his mother was separated. She had to serve the practice and him, and he always was in a battle to fight for his attention, because the child must be in the first place in every mother's mind. She must forget herself for the benefit of the child. It must be unselfish love that the child develops well. So I found children become sick when you separate them before the age from mother. When mother gives them into care, when mothers gives them into the day mother, when mothers give them into kindergarten, almost all kids get sick. Their nose is running all the time. They get their ear infections. And if they do not get physically sick, they get in their brain these behaviors. It's the same thing. You can only react wrong by a wrong behavior or a sickness. A wrong behavior of the child is the same like sickness. You see, I had once a lady, a family, they have 2 girls. The one girl, the older one, she was 11, she was sickly. That is, she was the more sensitive, so she got sick. The younger one was a year and something younger. She didn't get sick, but she was the rebellious girl. She just rebelled against their parents all the time, with 9 years old. And the parents came to me, the father came to me and said, "What shall I do with this girl?" I said, "Well, thank God for it, because this girl shows what is in your heart." Father was shocked. I don't have only friends with me, but of course. I didn't tell it so strongly to him, but I emphasized it and showed him, said, "This girl is just what you are in your heart, and your wife as well." And so I said, "Be happy, because the other girl reacts with self-pity and makes herself sick, and this girl reacts exactly what is it against that tension that is between you and your wife, or your wife and you, and if you fix the tension, the child, both get well. The one gets healthy and the other is not rebellious anymore." So, for whose child should I be more happy? For the one that is sensitive or not sensitive? Because the sick one you pity all the time, but the rebellious one you fight. And that's the problem. You have to know how to deal with both of it. But I tell you, the rebellious child is easier, because you can learn from that child the most how to do the things right. Because the more you fight, the worse it becomes. Because children are just the mirror of the family. And the mirror what's inside mom. That's why it's so important. It's not an accusation, it's just a help to see it. I would ever encourage, when our children, our foster children, told me something, it hurt terribly. Because they tell you the truth without mercy. Yes? But I said, "Lord, if It's not right. You have to convince me it's not right, because children always tell you the truth, who you are. Just ask them. Yes, go to children and tell them, write down what is your ideal about a mother. And then they give you a list. And then you ask the child, which of this ideal do I as mother fulfill? And then the child will tell you exactly. And then mother gets a chance to what? To change. Not to please the child, but to do the things right. So the umbilical cord of the mother to the child is a thing that we must understand. How long is this umbilical cord existing? Unfortunately, if it is never taken off, it remains till you die. Your mother remains your God forever. So that's why mothers need to do something in educating the child. The purpose of the child's education is to unwean the child from mother. Because the child has bound himself as an umbilical cord to mother. Education has this one purpose: to unwean the child from her, that the child should connect his spirit to God, so that when he's 12 or 15, you have done your job as mom, and everything is fine. Mom doesn't need anything from the child, however, and the child now is bound to God and is on its own, and mother has done her job well. Because you must teach the child to unwean his umbilical cord from mom, because he will stay always to mom. I had one patient one day, and she told me, yes, my husband is 70 years old, and his mom is 90, and he still listens to his mom. You laugh, but mother is the most powerful person on earth that exists. So we must unwean ourselves from our mothers. It's the hardest work to do if the mothers had not done it while we were young. They must be on God. So what does the spirit of the child do in its error? He takes from mother, then later he takes from father, then later he takes from grandmother, then later he takes from brother, then later he takes from friends, and then later he takes from neighbors or spouses. But all our relationships have one purpose: to take. That's why we get angry on each other, because we all bound ourselves for the purpose to take. We all put our umbilical cords on all people, and we are always there to orient ourselves after them. That's what we do through our selfish nature. At the same time, though, we claim from others to love us. The child sits on the throne and says, mother needs to love me. You only need to love mother. Mother doesn't need to love you. Children are not aware that they take. We will see that tomorrow night in the law, how we do that. But at the same time, we claim. And even if you're a Christian, you claim from God to be loved. And if God does not take care for your child, so it is run by a car, you will blame God for that he does not love you. You see, when people say, it's enough that God loves you, I tell them, look, you cannot come to any reasonable person to say God loved you when He allowed your child to be killed by a car. How will you explain a person that is love? Can you or can you not? No, that's why you need to make sure God is love, but what and how you do it is your business. You need to take in order to give. What God does, He will show us one day why He does it. But we do not need to be loved by God. We only need to take God's love and love with it. It's our action, not God's action. Yes, we have to learn that. I know that it's a hard thing. So we claim love. And that's why we claim love. We are getting angry on God because we think He owes us to love us. Does God owe you anything? No. Do parents owe anything to children? Okay, I hope so. They owe only to God to do the right thing for God's children. Yes? But the children sits on the throne and says, Mother owes to love me. Mother owes to serve me, to be at my service. And mothers are very happy to do that. I see mothers, they feed their babies with 5 years old. Please, eat, because the child protests, because mother goes to work, and they don't eat, and then mother needs to feed them. And they said, the child needs to eat by himself when he's 5. Yes? But mothers are happy to serve that which is not right. So if you want to have a very healthy and happy child, you need to make him a servant. Give him duties all the time. And he will be the happiest child. I can tell you stories. Children love to have duties when they have fulfilled them. But their selfish nature says it's more gain to do nothing. But reality is the more they do, the better they feel. But parents don't allow the children to cook. Can you cook? I was once in a family, there was an 11-year-old girl, and she was sitting on the table together with me and the father, and mother was serving the meal. And I said, who cooked the meal? And of course, the mother cooked the meal. And I said, next time when I come to visit you, and they are friends, I go to do meetings, I said, I want to have a 3-course meal cooked by the girl alone. And mother will sit on the table and the girl will serve everything from the beginning to the end. Mother was a little bit shocked because mothers, they think they do some harm to the girls if they do something. And so I came about 6 weeks later. I was again there. And they didn't expect me to come so early, but it was so the occasion. So I said, did the girl prepare? The girl prepared it, but not only alone. Mothers, they cannot behave themselves to stay still. And let it do it. If the things are half cooked, it's still fine. You know, but mothers are not able to let the child to do mistakes, to learn out of the mistakes. Yes, I ask mothers, I say, whenever the child comes to ask you something, don't give him the answer. But just say first, did you think about it? Did you pray before it? And God did not respond to you? Then you come back. So you have to train your child to think. But mothers are so happy when the children come to ask. They tell them all the responses. They tell everything. They do everything what they can for their children. So I have to stop here. Let's know one thing. Can this be true that we can be independent? No. We must be dependent. But since we are born separated from God, you see that line separates from God, we must take all our love from father, from mother, from spouse, from children, from friends, from pets. And so all the problems that humans have is they have a wrong spiritual dependency which they are not aware of. So I finish here just with an overview. If in your heart you think you're God, then you will have expectations of others, including God, and yourself. You will have claims towards others, including God and yourself. And you will see the gain when others fulfill your claim or your expectations. Then you say, that's a gain. And when it's a loss, when you do not receive what you claim or what you expect. And what is your reaction when you have a loss because someone does not fulfill your claims? How you react? Discontent, wrath, strife, controlling others, force, stress, anxiety, depression, and so on. Your body gets sick because you expect things from others. And you only get sick when they don't fulfill it to you. So if you would be in your heart a creature of God, then you would know how many expectations would you have on others? None for you. How many claims would you have on others? None for you. So where would be the gain? The gain would be in fulfilling my duty. And the loss would be in not fulfilling my duty. And then I would be contentment, friend, joyful, peaceful with all others because I would have no expectations. They can do whatever they want. And my body would be healthy. There is much more to say, but I stop here. I hope you have learned the lesson of the umbilical cord. We are ever dependent. And I give you a little bit of homework for tonight to find out in your heart, and you might ask God to help you to see on whom are you bound for your life. Who is the most important person in your life that if you lose it, you would get in trouble? Because then you know for sure you are bound to that person. You only can check it when you lose it. So try it if you want. Because we must know in whom we trust. The person we are bound to is whom we trust. And that person who are bound to you is your destiny. It cannot be else. If you would be bound and I would be bound to the right source, my destiny would be life and happiness eternally. But if I am bound to my wife, I get herpes or other things. And then I am not going to be happy and healthy. We must all be bound to that source. There is no choice for happiness except in one.